My husband's ex crashed our wedding, then pulled out a birth certificate with his name on it. I know wedding disasters can happen, but nothing prepared me for the moment my husband's ex burst into our reception, carrying a folded piece of paper like a nuclear weapon. That paper was a birth certificate with his name on it. Now I'm sitting here in the ruins of what was supposed to be my perfect day, wearing a wedding dress that suddenly feels like a cruel joke, and I can't stop replaying everything in my mind. I never imagined I'd be pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. But here I am, needing someone, anyone, to tell me I'm not losing my grip on reality. My name is Emily. My husband James and I have been together for a little over 2 years. We're both in our late 20s, living in a mid-sized city somewhere in the US, with a couple of decent jobs that helped us afford the sort of wedding we'd dreamed about. Nothing too extravagant, but polished enough to feel special. We spent months picking out the perfect venue. An old mansion turned event space with a gorgeous garden courtyard. The second we walked through its wrought iron gates, I fell in love with the ivy on the walls and the way the afternoon light made the stained glass windows glow. It felt like stepping into a fairy tale. I'd been up since dawn the day of our wedding, giddy with that jittery excitement you get when you realize your life is about to change forever. My best friend Amanda had spent the night, and we stayed up too late laughing over silly memories. Like the time in college we tried to bake cookies in a toaster oven and nearly burned down our dorm. I had trouble sleeping because I couldn't shake the sense of anticipation. This was my wedding day. In the morning, my mom, Linda, made me a light breakfast, though my nerves wouldn't let me eat much. I remember she kept reminding me to hydrate, to breathe, to let myself enjoy every second. James and I had agreed we wouldn't see each other until the ceremony, so I got ready at my parents' house while he stayed at a nearby hotel with his groomsmen. My dad, Kevin, was the one who drove me to the venue. He kept glancing over at me, tears welling in his eyes, then clearing his throat as if to cover how emotional he was. He walked me inside, kissed my cheek, and promised everything would be all right. The staff ushered me to a private bridal suite. It was a cozy space on the second floor, with a tall mirror in the corner and windows overlooking the garden, where the ceremony chairs were set up in perfect rows. Amanda and the other bridesmaids bustled around, helping me step into my dress. It was long and sleek, a classic A-line silhouette with a lace overlay. Nothing poofy or princess-like, but elegant, timeless. Something I could look back on years later without cringing. The moment I saw myself in the mirror that day, I felt like I was glowing from the inside out. The hours of hair and makeup, the careful planning, all of it was culminating in this single, beautiful moment. The ceremony was scheduled for 5 in the afternoon, just as the sunlight turned golden. I remember peeking out the window and seeing guests start to arrive. Women in colorful dresses, men in suits and ties, laughter and conversation drifting up from below. I couldn't see James, but I knew he was out there, probably as nervous as I was. My heart fluttered at the thought of him standing at the altar, waiting. We'd met in a local volunteer group. He was the one who organized the events, always the first to arrive and the last to leave, so dedicated to helping others. From the beginning, I was drawn to his kindness and that easy grin he wore when he was genuinely happy. Over time, we'd built this life together, weaving together our hopes and ambitions. No man had ever made me feel as safe or as seen as James did. When 5 o'clock rolled around, my dad came to escort me down. The walk from the mansion's arched entryway through the garden to the altar felt surreal, like floating. Rows of guests turned to watch me, and I saw both sets of parents, siblings, cousins, and friends. Amanda gave me a subtle thumbs up as I passed her. Then I saw James standing under a canopy of flowers. He looked so handsome in his navy blue suit, a matching tie, hair neatly combed, his eyes locked on me. That memory is still precious to me, because for all the darkness that followed, in that fleeting moment everything was perfect. We exchanged vows we'd each written. James's voice trembled slightly as he promised to stand by me, to cherish me, to always communicate. I slipped the ring onto his finger and swore that I'd love him for the rest of my days. There was something so comforting about that public declaration. We were stepping into the future hand in hand. No more secrets, no more hidden corners. At least, that's what I believed. We sealed it with a kiss, and the guests clapped and cheered. My dad tried to discreetly wipe his tears. Amanda was openly bawling with a big grin on her face. James and I walked down the aisle together, arms linked, as petals rained on us. Inside the mansion, the staff had set up a lovely cocktail hour in the foyer, with waiters passing around sparkling wine. People congratulated us, snapped photos, and joked about when we'd have kids. I remember laughing, feeling like I was on top of the world, wrapped in a glowing bubble of joy. Eventually, we made our entrance into the main reception area, a high-ceilinged ballroom with antique chandeliers. The tables were dressed in cream tablecloths, centerpieces of blush roses and greenery. It was all exactly how I'd envisioned it. We cut the cake, a three-tiered vanilla confection with subtle gold accents, while the cameras flashed. One of James's uncles gave a heartfelt toast about watching James grow from a shy kid into a responsible, big-hearted man. Then Amanda toasted me, saying that I'd always been the friend who took care of everyone else, and how I finally found someone who'd take care of me, too. Tears glistened in my eyes. I was so filled with gratitude I couldn't imagine anything ever spoiling this. But life doesn't ask permission to drop bombs on your happiness. The moment it started, I was standing near the dance floor chatting with my aunt and uncle, an upbeat pop song playing in the background. I heard a sudden hush. I turned to see people parting as a woman in a dark green dress strode forward, looking out of place among the pastel-colored decor. She was tall, with flowing brunette hair, and she held herself with a confidence that verged on aggression. I felt my stomach tighten. I didn't recognize her, but there was a strange expression on her face, something between determination and panic. James, who had been over by the DJ's table, froze when he spotted her. Then, like a magnet, his gaze locked on hers. In that instant, I knew something was terribly wrong. The next few seconds were a blur, but I remember her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room, firm and clear. "James, you didn't leave me any choice." Or, all my senses went on high alert. I walked toward them, my white heels clicking on the floor. Guests started whispering. My parents looked on in confusion. Amanda kept close, as though ready to shield me if necessary. James stepped forward, holding up a hand as if to calm the woman down, but she brushed him aside. With a trembling hand, she pulled a folded paper from her clutch. "This is a birth certificate," she announced. She turned to me and my heart nearly stopped. "He's the father of my child and I have the paperwork to prove it." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. Several people gasped. My mother let out a disbelieving, "What?" I heard someone accidentally knock a glass off a table, and it shattered, echoing the way my sense of security was shattering inside me. I stared at the woman, then at James. His face had gone ashen, eyes wide with something akin to horror. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind tried to process what she'd said. A child? James's child? How? When? James finally found his voice. "Rachel, you can't just barge in." She cut him off with a shaky laugh. "I've been calling you for weeks. You blocked me. You thought I'd stay quiet. Well, guess what? I refused to let my daughter grow up without a father." My daughter. The word rang in my ears like a siren. This woman was accusing my brand new husband of fathering her child. The hush in the ballroom was suffocating. Everyone was staring at us, cameras undoubtedly rolling. I wanted to disappear, or at least press pause. This couldn't be happening. I tried to speak, but my throat felt constricted. James moved to stand between me and Rachel as though to protect me, but I put a hand on his shoulder to push him aside. I wasn't about to hide behind him when I needed answers. "Who is she?" I managed to choke out. My voice sounded foreign, shaky, but resolute enough to demand the truth. James swallowed hard. "She's... She's my ex. We dated. It ended almost 2 years ago." Rachel's lips twisted bitterly. "Funny how you leave out the part where we hooked up after the breakup. More than once. Then, 9 months later, I have a baby. Do the math, James." James looked as though he'd been punched in the stomach. "You told me she wasn't mine? That it could have been..." Her voice rose. "I changed my mind after the paternity test. And I tried to tell you, but you never picked up." The blood pounded in my ears. People around us were shifting uncomfortably, unsure if they should keep watching or slip away. My father was storming toward us, face red with anger, but my mother stopped him, whispering something in his ear. Amanda had her hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. I turned my gaze on James, my eyes stinging. "Is there a chance this is true?" I whispered. He broke eye contact, shoulders sagging. I don't know. She told me once there was a possibility, but then she said the dates didn't match. I never heard back from her after that, so I assumed it wasn't mine. Then, a few weeks ago, she tried to contact me again." He looked at me, voice trembling. "I wanted to tell you, Em, but we were so close to the wedding and I was scared. I thought she was lying, that she just wanted money or to cause drama." Oh, my heart twisted. "You thought ignoring her was the solution?" Rachel drew in a shaky breath. "He left me no choice. He refused to acknowledge me or my daughter. So, yes, I chose your wedding day to make sure he couldn't run away from his responsibilities anymore." Suddenly, security personnel appeared, unsure whether to escort her out or wait for instructions. The wedding coordinator, wide-eyed, hovered in the background, twisting her hands. Half the guests were silent, the other half whispering as if we were characters in a soap opera. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and furious all at once. My cheeks burned with embarrassment at having such a private matter aired in front of everyone I loved. And in the middle of that swirling horror, a small voice inside me kept asking, could James actually be a father? It was my dad who finally stepped in. Let's handle this somewhere else, he said, his voice shaking. Not in front of all these people. Freeze, sir. Rachel's mouth pressed into a line. Fine, but don't think that changes anything. Here. She shoved the folded paper into James's hand, then gave me a glance that might have held a sliver of sympathy. I couldn't tell. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but maybe now he'll listen. My daughter deserves more than being ignored. Yum. She turned on her heel and strode out, the security staff trailing after her. The air felt heavy and still, as though the entire building held its breath. My mother hurried toward me, wanting to whisk me away, but I couldn't move. I looked at James, half hoping he'd say it was all a misunderstanding. The expression on his face, caught between guilt and desperation, told me otherwise. We excused ourselves from the reception, ignoring the murmurs and stares. A staff member guided us to a small office near the back of the mansion, an empty room with boxes stacked against the walls. My parents and Amanda tried to follow, but I asked them to wait outside. I needed a moment alone with James. The second the door shut, I turned to him, tears burning my eyes. Is any part of this even remotely false? He rubbed his temples. I honestly don't know. We broke up 2 years ago. The relationship was toxic, but we saw each other off and on after that, out of some stupid habit. About a year and a half ago, she called me, said she was pregnant, but I never got clarity. She said I might be the father, then she flipped around and said there were other possibilities. Eventually, we stopped talking. I genuinely believed it wasn't mine. My mind spun. You got those messages from her recently, didn't you? I remember you acting weird on your phone. He nodded, wincing. She claimed the baby was mine and threatened to show up at the wedding if I didn't acknowledge it. I blocked her because, God, I thought she was bluffing or trying to manipulate me. I was terrified it would ruin everything. His voice cracked. I couldn't lose you. I took a shaky breath, tears blurring my vision. Well, congratulations. You managed to ruin it anyway. But his face contorted in anguish. I'm so sorry. I swear I was going to handle it after the wedding. I wanted to protect you, protect us. I'm your wife, James, I said, choking back a sob. I should have known about this from the start. You don't protect someone by lying to them. He tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. My heart felt like it was physically aching. All those vows about honesty and trust, less than an hour old. And here we were, picking up the pieces of a bombshell I never saw coming. Outside, I could hear muted voices, perhaps Amanda or my parents trying to keep the guests calm. The music had stopped. My stomach knotted as I imagined the rumors and speculations spreading among everyone we knew. This was supposed to be our day, and it had turned into a public nightmare. A soft knock on the door made us both jump. Amanda peeked in, her cheeks flushed with sympathy. Emily, your parents are asking if you want everyone to leave, or if you want to try to salvage the reception. I almost laughed, salvage the reception, as if the night could ever go back to normal. My head pounded, and I closed my eyes, imagining the fairy tale scenario I'd dreamed about. The first dance with James, a delicious dinner, heartfelt toasts, a triumphant send-off, all replaced by a hush of scandal and a meltdown of trust. Let them know they can go, I said faintly, and tell them I'm so sorry. Amanda gave me a look of heartbreak. Are you okay if I shook my head. I just need a little more time alone with him. Thank you. She slipped out, gently closing the door. James sagged against the table. I never wanted this, he mumbled. I never wanted you to find out this way. A surge of anger roiled in me. But it's okay if I found out on, say, our honeymoon, or a month down the line. When were you planning to tell me, James? He couldn't meet my eyes. I thought she was lying. I needed to confirm before I put you through that stress. Confirm how? I demanded. Did you do a paternity test? Anything? No, he admitted, voice raw. I didn't. I was in denial. Tears slipped down my cheeks. What are we supposed to do now? He reached out, and this time I let him hold my hands, though I felt numb. I don't know, he whispered. But I love you. That's the only thing I'm sure of. If this child is mine, I'll step up and be a father. But it doesn't mean I want a life with Rachel. I want you. But I'm married to a man who might be the father of another woman's baby, I said, the words tasting bitter. This changes everything. He shut his eyes, a tear sliding down his cheek. I'm begging you, please don't give up on me. On us. I didn't have an answer. My heart ached, My trust felt shattered, and I was too overwhelmed to make sense of anything. Part of me wanted to rip off the wedding ring and throw it at him. Another part of me remembered how much I loved him and wanted to cling to the good we had. We stayed in that small office for what felt like hours, though it was probably no more than 20 minutes. Eventually, my mom came in, eyes brimming with sadness, and gently said it might be best if we left. People were drifting away, the wedding effectively over. So we left, me still in my dress, James in his suit. We walked out through a side door, avoiding the front entrance where cameras still flashed and guests lingered in confusion. My dad drove me home. James took a separate car. He tried to come with us, but my dad firmly told him it was best to give me space. For once, James didn't argue. He looked defeated, like a man who'd just lost the most important thing in his life. The hours that followed are a blur. I locked myself in my childhood bedroom, still in my dress, face streaked with mascara. My mom knocked occasionally, asking if I wanted water or food, but my stomach churned at the thought. I just sat on the floor staring at the ring on my finger, which now felt like a broken promise. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from relatives, friends, people who'd heard rumors. Amanda texted that she loved me, that she was sorry, that she'd come over whenever I wanted her. I couldn't bring myself to reply. I didn't sleep. By morning, I felt numb, my eyes swollen from crying. My dad coaxed me downstairs and my mom handed me a slice of toast and some tea. They tried to assure me it would be okay, that they were there for me no matter what. But they couldn't fix this. I appreciated their support, yet deep down, I knew no one else could make the choice for me. Walk away or try to salvage my marriage. James called me every few hours, leaving voicemails filled with apologies. He sounded so desperate and regretful, but I was too raw to talk to him. I finally picked up on the second day after the wedding. He told me he'd set up an appointment for a paternity test. Rachel had agreed to it because if James really was the father, she wanted child support, medical insurance, everything a baby was entitled to. He asked if I'd be there by his side, but I said I needed time. He offered to move out of our shared apartment until we figured things out. I said yes. I couldn't bear to sleep next to him right now, let alone pretend nothing had happened. Those days stretched into a week. Social media exploded with gossip about our ruined wedding. Some of our guests posted videos or photos capturing Rachel's dramatic entrance. Strangers commented with all sorts of opinions, some feeling sorry for me, others claiming James was a typical cheater, and a few even suggesting I'd staged it for attention. It felt surreal. Amanda tried to shield me by reporting or removing what she could, but the damage was done. I hated that the entire world seemed to know about my heartbreak. My mother eventually convinced me to sit down with James. She said I needed to hear him out if I had any hope of deciding my next step. So I invited him to meet me at a quiet coffee shop one evening, where it was unlikely we'd run into anyone we knew. I spotted him the moment I stepped inside. He looked pale, with dark circles under his eyes, as though he hadn't slept or eaten properly in days. When he saw me, he rose from his chair so abruptly he nearly knocked it over. "Emily," he breathed, voice heavy with relief. "Thank you for coming." I slid into the seat across from him. "You look terrible," I said bluntly, and I couldn't keep a note of concern from my voice. He gave a humorless laugh. "I feel worse." We ordered some tea, but I couldn't taste anything. The swirl of coffee aromas made me nauseous as I stared at James. Memories of our wedding flooding back. The vow exchange, the moment the ex arrived, the heartbreak. "How did the paternity test go?" I asked quietly. He cleared his throat. "We're waiting on results. Could be another week or two." "Yeah," I nodded, fiddling with my cup. "And what if it's positive?" He clasped his hands together. "Then I'll be a father. I'll take responsibility. But it doesn't change the fact that I love you, Em. I want our marriage to work." Or I let out a shaky sigh. "James, I feel like I don't even know you anymore. All this time you kept me in the dark. Were there other secrets? Do you have another ex about to barge in?" His face contorted with regret. "That was the only secret. I promise. I made a selfish choice not to tell you, one I regret more than anything." We sat there in loaded silence until I finally spoke. "If this child is yours, I can't pretend she doesn't exist. That would mean you'd have to co-parent with Rachel for at least the next 18 years. He nodded, eyes full of pain. "I know, but I'll do whatever it takes to fix this, to prove you can still trust me. I can't lose you." I swallowed hard, tears burning my eyes again. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to handle that kind of drama. I wanted a clean slate with you, a future without skeletons in the closet." He reached across, but I pulled my hands into my lap. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'd give anything to undo the past." We parted that evening without a clear resolution. I felt torn between two extremes, the love I had for James and the betrayal that was poisoning the foundation of our relationship. I ended up crashing at Amanda's place for a week, trying to piece myself together. She was a rock, letting me sob on her couch, bringing me chocolate, telling me it was normal to feel shattered. But she also reminded me that if the child was real, it wasn't the baby's fault. The baby deserved a father who cared. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the wedding, James called me. I almost let it go to voicemail, but a surge of urgency told me to answer. His voice was trembling. The results came in. I gripped my phone, heart racing. And? He drew a shaky breath. I'm the father. Sosh. My knees went weak, and I sank onto Amanda's sofa. This was real. Everything I'd feared was now confirmed. There was a child, Rachel's child, and it was James's. In that moment, I was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. Sadness, betrayal, heartbreak, anger, and even a flicker of guilt. My marriage was less than a month old, and I was facing a reality I'd never signed up for. We arranged to meet again. This time, James admitted he'd spoken in detail with Rachel and discovered more about their daughter, Lily. She was 9 months old, had just started crawling and babbling. Rachel was furious at him for ignoring her, but she was also willing to work out a custody arrangement if he stepped up. James's voice cracked when he told me about seeing Lily in person. Her big brown eyes, the way she gripped his finger. He said he felt overwhelmed with love and responsibility, that he couldn't turn his back on her. I saw tears in his eyes, genuine and raw. Watching him talk about Lily sparked a war in my heart. On one hand, I despised him for dragging me into such a painful situation. On the other, it pained me to see the heartbreak he was going through, realizing he was a father who hadn't been there for the first 9 months. He promised he'd do everything by the book, set up child support, be present in Lily's life, and keep boundaries with Rachel so that it wouldn't interfere with our marriage. I took a deep breath, my voice shaking. What does that marriage even look like now? Do we move forward, pretend nothing happened, while you juggle fatherhood and ex-drama? James leaned forward. We can't pretend. But we can try to rebuild. We can go to counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I'll show you every text from Rachel, every financial detail, so you never have to wonder what I'm hiding. I studied him, remembering the person who once volunteered weekends to build homes for low-income families. The guy who cooked me dinner after my horrible days at work. Could I see myself forging a life with him, baby and all? Could I trust him not to lie again? Finally, I told him I was willing to try, but only if we got professional help. I needed more than words. He agreed without hesitation. My parents were supportive but cautious, not wanting to see me get hurt again. Amanda warned me that forging ahead would be the hardest road I'd ever walk. And she was right. We started couples therapy a week later. Those sessions were brutal. The counselor had us lay everything out. The timeline of James's relationship with Rachel, how it overlapped with ours, his fears about losing me, my devastation at being blindsided. We dug into the trust issues, the betrayal, the ways we both contributed to communication failures. It wasn't an overnight fix. There were days I stormed out of sessions in tears, times James looked absolutely hollow with guilt. I contemplated divorce more than once, especially when the tabloids or gossip blogs brought up the scandal again, or when pictures of Lily started circulating among extended family. But slowly, bit by painstaking bit, James proved he was serious. He involved me in every discussion about custody, finances, everything. With the help of lawyers, he and Rachel set a visitation schedule. I wasn't exactly thrilled about seeing her, but she was oddly civil when we did cross paths. She told me once quietly that she had no intention of getting back together with James, only that she wanted Lily to have her dad. I still harbored anger for the way she ambushed us at the wedding, but I also recognized the desperation that must have driven her to do it. I couldn't fully hate her, despite the pain she'd caused. Eventually, James asked if I wanted to meet Lily. I was terrified. I worried I'd resent her for existing, or that seeing her would break me all over again. But I forced myself to go. We met in a neutral, child-friendly cafe with a play area. Rachel was there, holding Lily, who stared up at me with bright eyes. She was a beautiful baby, all chubby cheeks and curious expressions. My heart twisted with conflicting emotions. It wasn't Lily's fault that her father and mother had made terrible choices. She deserved love. James gently said, "This is Emily," his voice cracking a little, as if he worried Lily could sense the tension. The baby blinked, then gave a little squeal, reaching for a toy. I managed a trembling smile, tears gathering in my eyes as I watched James interact with her. He looked so unsure but also determined to be a good dad. And in that moment, I felt a spark of compassion that helped ease the sharp edge of my pain. The weeks became months. I moved back in with James, though we took things slowly. Our counselor encouraged us to have regular check-ins, to voice any feelings of insecurity or jealousy. I had nightmares about him lying again, and sometimes I'd wake up crying. Each time he'd hold me, apologize, remind me he wasn't keeping secrets anymore. We worked on building a foundation grounded in honesty. It was a messy, imperfect process full of setbacks, but for every step back, there were little moments of progress. A shared laugh over dinner, a quiet evening on the couch watching old sitcoms, an honest conversation about the future where James reassured me that I was his partner in every sense. Sometimes we talk about the wedding day that was ruined. We've had well-meaning friends suggest we do a vow renewal, a redo ceremony. Maybe someday we will. Right now, I'm still healing. The memory of standing in that mansion, hearing Rachel's accusation, and seeing the horror in James's eyes is lodged too deep. Yet, oddly, I also feel like we've earned our marriage in a way that not many couples do this early on. We've been tested by the worst kind of betrayal, forced to confront the ugliest sides of each other, fear, dishonesty, regret. And still, we're here, trying. There's no neat bow I can tie on the end of this story. James has a daughter, Lily, and we're figuring out how that fits into our life every single day. I still can't say I'm 100% over the betrayal. Some days I'm furious at him and snap over small triggers. Other days I feel hopeful, imagining how Lily might grow up having a relationship with both of us, how maybe in time I can be a positive presence in her life. What I do know is that James and I love each other, and we're both determined not to let the mistakes of the past define our future. So that's where we stand. A newlywed couple whose first act of married life involved a nuclear secret dropping into our laps. Not exactly what I had in mind for happily ever after. But maybe ever after isn't about perfection. Maybe it's about confronting the storm head-on and deciding whether you're going to let it wash you away or find a way to rebuild. For anyone reading, please learn from my experience. Talk to your partner. Really talk. If there's even a shred of a possibility that something explosive is lurking in the past, it's better to face it before walking down the aisle. The pain of discovering it under 1,000 watchful eyes on your wedding day is indescribable, like the rug being pulled out from under your entire life. But if you do find yourself in a situation like mine, know that it's not automatically the end. There can be a path forward, as twisted and rocky as it may be. I'm not writing this post to ask for permission to leave or stay, but to share what happened and, in a way, remind myself of how far we've come. Sometimes I scroll through pictures of the wedding, the ones taken before Rachel crashed in, and I feel a pang of loss. Other times, I think about the child who now unknowingly binds our lives together, and I realize that real love, real marriage, is about facing hard truths, heartbreak, and still choosing to put in the work. So that's my story. My husband's ex crashed our wedding with a birth certificate in hand, upending everything we thought we knew. We've been reeling ever since, but maybe, just maybe, we'll end up stronger than we ever would have been if life had stayed simple. It's not the fairy tale I planned, but it's the reality I'm fighting for, one day at a time. And that, I suppose, is the best I can do.